cars and not standing beside a gas pump in cold, blustery Winnipeg winter. I love it. EVs do really well in the brutal cold that is sometimes our winter here in Winterpeg. In January, I took a road trip to Saskatchewan and Alberta, and they had a polar vortex at the time. Many days the temperature struggled to reach minus 35. My EV performed flawlessly even when my family's Honda and Jeep would not start. Ironically, I was the one that was chauffeuring them around town. It's easy peasy to drive an EV in the brutally cold Manitoba, Saskatchewan, or Alberta winters. Charging at home is simple. For more than a decade, I've been charging my iMEV electric car on 120 volts, also known as level 1. I also charge my Tesla on level 1 as well at home. Plug it into the wall in the garage and it fills itself up overnight. The great news is that you have time on your side. You have hours and hours when the car is just sitting there parked and it's filling while you have a sleep, have your supper. The size of the car and the size of the battery does not impact your charging needs. What does impact your charging needs is how far do you drive every day. I'm a fairly typical driver. I go about 30 to 50 kilometers a day, and the same is true for my wife. So 120 volts easily fills us both up for both of our cars. Imagine starting every day with a full tank. It's a very comfortable feeling that you know you're starting with a full tank every day. If you drive a lot, 100 or hundreds of kilometers per day, you'll need a level 2 charger. What that means is it uses 240 volts. I think there's a few people around here who can help you make the selection for your particular vehicle. You can also talk to us at manitobaev.ca and we can help you pick out a charger which is appropriate for your particular vehicle and your driving needs. We're glad to help. Probably the most important thing about driving an EV is the low CO2 content of our electricity in this province. I drive my iMEV about 10,000 kilometers a year, and the CO2 content is equivalent to 1/4 cup of gasoline. Just think about that. Yes, 1/4 cup of gasoline for a whole year. That's how much CO2 is generated for the electricity that I use in my car to drive for a whole year. The same is true for my Model S, although it uses more energy. It's a 1/2 cup of gasoline for a whole year of CO2 equivalent. Now that I'm older and I'm retired, I have limited income, so I can't afford hundreds of dollars a month for gasoline. I just can't. I don't have that kind of money at my disposal. Affordability is one of the main reasons that I drive electric today. I spend $10 a month for the IMEV that takes my wife to school. She's a teacher. She takes her to school every day. And $20 a month for the Tesla, which is the one that we use for everything else. That is fairly affordable. Can you drive your car for $10 for a whole year, or a whole month, excuse me? The really great thing is that the price doesn't go up and down. Not the way it does with gasoline at the whim of some Middle Eastern oil baron. Of course, road trips are extra. While you're driving along the highway, you will have to stop at charging stations. Those typically cost $20 or $30 per fill. It's still very affordable, although it's more expensive than charging at home, but still very affordable. I love driving electric. I will never go back to gas. At manitobaev.ca, we welcome your questions, your concerns, and thank you for letting me share my experiences.
So I had a long-winded speech I was going to give this morning, and having a look around the room and listening to folks talk a little bit before we got going, I decided to throw that out the window. Instead of us telling you what we think you should hear, I think, to be quite honest with you, I'd be much more interested to have a conversation. Again, the chief referred to this, a conversation today. I'd really like to hear what you would like to talk about, what you would like us to tell you about, what information would you like us to give you. And so instead of giving you a long-winded speech, I'm just going to back up what Ross said a minute ago on costs, what it costs to drive a vehicle, and then I'm going to ask you for some questions. I know we have a question and answer session this afternoon, but just to get us going, to let us know what it is you really would like to know more about, we'll give you a chance to ask them. Just here we are. Charge stats. So this is my Tesla Model Y over here. It's the Manitoba's best-selling electric vehicle. It's also the best-selling electric vehicle in the world. So we brought it in here as a good example of what you could be looking at if you were to buy an electric vehicle. I've owned it now for a year and a half, and in a year and a half, in addition to doing daily, everyday driving, my better looking half and I took a 6,000 kilometer trip to Ontario and toured all around Ontario last summer, and then we've done a few other trips. So we've done quite a lot of driving. The total amount of electricity we've used was $1,026 worth of electricity for doing well over 10,000 kilometers in the last year and a half. That's astounding, obviously. The best part is we haven't paid for much of that. I mean that literally. We haven't paid for much of it. There are so many places where you stop and charge up for free, which is nice if you're going to some town and visiting their local museum or going out to a festival somewhere. There are places quite often where you can simply plug your vehicle in, and while you're enjoying that town and whatever festivities are going on, you're charging up your vehicle. Ross said it's convenient. It's incredibly convenient, and it's cheap. So throwing that out there, letting you know, one of the things that we get asked about quite often is, or a statement, in fact, that's made to us is that, well, I'd like to buy an electric vehicle, but they're just too expensive. And what folks often forget about is that they look at the purchase price, the sticker price. And yes, the sticker price on these in some cases is a little more expensive, although now they're getting a lot closer to what other vehicles are in terms of price. But they forget about what the total cost per month is. So on a monthly basis, if you take what I pay to the bank for my monthly payment for the car and add to it what I pay for electricity, and then take a look at a Toyota Corolla, if I bought a Toyota Corolla instead, the monthly payment I would have to pay to the bank is less for the Corolla. However, my monthly payment for gas and my monthly payment for maintenance on the Corolla actually make the Corolla more expensive than the Tesla Model Y. So one of the world's most advanced electric vehicles is actually available to you if you really look at it in those terms of what the total cost of ownership is, as opposed to just looking at the sticker price. And who wouldn't? Later on, you want to come around and have a look at the vehicle, kick the tires, sit in the seat, and give you a chance to sum it up for yourself. I think you'll find that I think I made a pretty good choice going with this as opposed to the Toyota Corolla. But as I said, I didn't really want to spend a lot of time telling you. I thought I'd give you a chance to kick it off, give us a few ideas as to what it is you'd like to know about today, and we'll be happy throughout the rest of the day when there are opportunities to address some of those things you'd like to know about. So anybody got a question you want to kick up? Yes, sir.
Charging stations. I'm about 900 kilometers north. Thank you. I'm about 900 kilometers north, past Thompson. Charging stations, where do you have them up north? Like, and you're talking about going east coast, west coast. Sure, there's the cities, right, and everything else connected with #1 highway. But what about off roads, like going north on these provinces? What charging stations? Do you have them all over the place, or how does that work?
And okay, just so everybody knows, I didn't pay this gentleman to ask this question. But for those of us in the Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association who know me, this is one that I can get really, really animated about. Yes, there aren't enough. There's no question about it. As you go north, and that's been a big bugaboo for us in the association for a long time. As we all know, much of the electricity is produced in the north. But down here is where we're getting to use it. And that doesn't exactly seem fair to us. We think that everybody in the north should have the same opportunities that we have down here in the south. So the charging stations that we've got down here conveniently located should also be conveniently located in the north. They can be and they should be. And it's one of the things we've been working hard towards. Fortunately, we've got a few people here today who are working to get charging stations installed in the north. And so that being the case, I think we won't have to wait too long. And this is one of those opportunities, I think, where you can make a difference. If you're living in a First Nation, you own the land, you have an opportunity to set up charging stations and get in on the ground floor of this industry. There's good equipment now available, and there are a variety of ways to install it, and there are people here who can talk to you in terms of what it's going to take to get it done. We will be more than happy as an association to work with you, and if there's anybody who needs to be convinced that that's the sort of investment you should be making, we'll be happy to give you the stats. Ross gave you a few this morning. We've got books of them, so yeah.
Yeah, we're one of the communities that are totally affected by Manitoba Hydro for people to enjoy the electricity. We're the one that communities that are affected big time. We suffer for. Anyway, my next question is, if you run out of charge in the middle of nowhere, how do you can easily boost a gas vehicle, keep on going. What about for, what's the?
Shall I tell them our story, Ross? Okay, so Ross and I get asked to do speeches like this fairly often over the years, and going back several years ago now, we were asked to speak to a convention of technical teachers at a meeting they were having at high school out in Steinbach. And So Ross offered to drive the car out, but he checked in advance with the high school to see if there was a place where we could plug in there. And of course, they got a welding shop, and so they've got some pretty high-powered electrical service available. And they said, no problem, you can use that. So we got there, and Ross plugged in, and we were really tickled. This is high charging. We don't get that kind of charging normally when we go off to a place like this. So we were quite happy. And off we went, and we talked with people, made our speeches, and we were quite popular that day in reality, because this was still new stuff. So we were among actually the very last people to leave the school. And as we did, the last person there led us out the door and closed the door behind us. Then he went and got in his car, and Ross and I drove across the parking lot, and we got to the far side of the parking lot, and Ross said, oh, and I said, what's the matter? He said, I don't think the charger was turned on. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we don't have any more electricity in this thing than we did when we left. So Ross and I set off. We're going relatively slowly. We're taking all the back roads. I'm going to tell you the real story. We didn't stop at stop signs, because you don't want to be slopping down and having to know. We got to finally to the far southeast corner of Winnipeg. Just you could sort of see the houses in the distance, and there was a strip mall that we came upon, and I'm looking, and I see there's a little restaurant. I said to Ross, turn into the strip mall here. He said, what are you talking? We got to get home. I said, just trust me, turn into the strip mall here. And there's a little restaurant, just pull up to the restaurant. So we pulled up, and I walked in, and I said to the lady who was running the restaurant, do you mind if, I gave her the story, what we've just gone through, and I said, would you mind if we use your plug at the back of the restaurant? Because of course in strip malls, they've all got those 110 plugs there. And she said to me, you gonna have dessert? I said, yes. She said, go ahead. So Ross drove the car around the back, we plugged in, and we went inside. Actually, it was a great restaurant. We had 2 desserts, I think, that day. We came back out, got in the car. That was the southeast corner of Winnipeg. I live over near Kenaston and Grant, Kenaston and Corridon, and Ross drove me over there. Then Ross lives downtown, so he had to get all the way back downtown. And Ross told me the next morning when he got downtown to his place, he still had enough electricity left in the battery. He could have driven to work the next morning too without charging up. Well, of course he didn't. He plugged in at home. But I tell that story because what it means is that, as we like to say to folks, here in Manitoba, we've got over 500,000 charging stations. Now, you and I are used to calling them block heater plug-ins. But if you're driving an electric vehicle and you're caught in a situation like Ross and I were caught in that day, you can plug in anywhere. You can't do that with a gasoline-powered vehicle. You got to sit there and wait for CAA or somebody to bring out gasoline to you. You don't have to do that with an electric vehicle.
So, okay, with gas, like I said, the distance I live and where I live around the north, there's not, sometimes gas stations are not open late. So anyway, did they come up with anything that they can carry extra electricity so you can actually plug it in if you run out? Like a booster or something that you can carry?
Yeah. You
Like
can get a
boost. Gallon cherry can, something electrical though.
Yeah, you can get a boost. And there are automobile associations like CAA in some places, and AAA down in the States, and they've got vehicles that'll come out and charge you up.
What about your own, is what I'm saying, like can you buy something, those boosters and carry it around so that if you run out?
I'd like to tell you a story about a friend that I helped who lives in a condo, and the condo board would not allow them to charge up their car. So what they did was they got one of these big battery packs that's on wheels, basically. So during the day, they roll this into the elevator, go up to their condo, plug it in inside the condo. At night, they bring it down, they plug it into their car, and they charge their car up. And that's how they're currently running their car within a condo that does not allow plug-ins. They just charge it up every night off of this battery pack that is, I don't know, 4 or 6 kilowatt hours. It's not very big, but it provides enough electricity that they can do their daily driving. Of course, road trips are extra. You have to fill it at a high power DC fast charger for road trips, but that gets them through their everyday driving.
Okay, I don't want to hold up the mic, but I got a lot of questions, but
This is great. That's why I said, instead of us standing here telling you what we think you should be hearing, better if we find out from you what you want to hear. Yeah.
so without the gas tank, it has to replace batteries, right? How heavy, how extra weight, that extra weight for batteries for each vehicle, or well, no, I guess it's different for each vehicle, but for yours, how much extra weight is it compared to a regular car like that?
It's a little heavier, but it does vary. It depends on the vehicle. Yeah, that's the simple short answer. It depends on the vehicle. It's a little heavier, but frankly, it doesn't make any kind of a difference in terms of your drivability, other than it's a lot better for driving because all the weight is in the batteries, which are below the seats, and they're distributed evenly from side to side and from front to back. So we get a much lower center of gravity, and that gives us much more stability on the road. You know that tippy feeling that we get when we're in a gas-powered vehicle, where we're going around the corner and you got to slow down in the corner. One of the things that Ross and I have a danger of is not slowing down in the corners because we don't have to. Literally, you really don't. It's kind of nice. So.
How often do you have to